Hello, viewers. Welcome to Political Currents, the show that brings you comprehensive coverage of our nation's political landscape. I'm your host, Rashid Oniagi. In this program, we dive deep into the heart of Nigeria's politics, bringing you the latest updates, insightful analysis, and in-depth discussions on the issues that matter to you. In each edition, we will be joined by political leaders, policy experts, and the voices of everyday Nigerians as we explore the currents that shape our political discourse. We'll tackle the tough questions, challenge the status quo, and strive to understand the complexities of our diverse and dynamic political environment. So sit back, relax, and let's navigate the currents of Nigeria's politics together. Welcome to Political Currents. And tonight we will be looking at the issue of the Students' Loan Act that was recently signed by the President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, on the 3rd of March 2024. The ostensible reason is to improve access to educational opportunities. But let's hear it from him before I introduce my guest on this program.
I've just signed a bill proclaiming the student loan effectively. First of all, I must thank the members of the National Assembly for their expeditious handling of this bill, considering the children of Nigeria, that education is the tool to fight against poverty effectively. We are determined to ensure education is given the proper attention necessary for the country, including skill development programs. This is to ensure that no one, no matter how poor their background is excluded from quality education and opportunity to build their future. We are here because we are all educated and we are helped. In the past, you've seen a lot of our children drop out of colleges and given up the opportunity. That is no more. The standard and the control is there for you to apply, no matter who you are, as long as you are a Nigerian citizen.
Bashir Ibrahim. I often get well, Barrister Bashir Ibrahim is an astute political commentator and even a better lawyer, I must say, though I've never had to use the services because I've never been in trouble. No. But because this particular act, the Students' Loan Act, has very, very important legal ramification. It is basically institutionalizing educational financing in ways that we have never seen before in Nigeria. You know, we have problems with education in Nigeria. But before we go into that, let me welcome you to our program,
Thank you,
Barrister.
Thank you very much.
I hope you will do this justice today, because people really need to know exactly what this is about, because we've heard so much about free education. In fact, the mantra in Nigeria has always been free education. Governorship candidate politicians will come and I will say, we provide you with free education from this stage to this stage to that stage. But I've always been of the belief that free education does not exist. There is always a cost.
There is a cost to everything. Like I always say, there is nothing that is truly free.
Except the air.
Well, depends on how you look at it. You ask those in the hospital that need the oxygen. There's a
People
price.
pay for oxygen.
There's a price to pay.
Okay.
So this particular act is a wonderful one, a good step in the right direction to make funding available to those who are unable to finance the education themselves.
But before you go into that, let's look at the genesis of the problem, because ostensibly this act, this law, is meant to solve a problem.
Definitely.
But what has been the problem of education since perhaps independence?
Over the years, the problem of education is not one size fits all. It is multifaceted. From the level of capacity to funding to access to even the number of institutions we have. You know, we have problems regarding management, problems of sustainability, problems of not even directing the education or the curriculum to what is obtainable or to what will be needed in the marketplace. We have a whole lot of problems in the educational sector, but this particular act is meant to solve one major problem,
which is
funding.
Access. I thought it was meant to, I mean, I don't know whether Nigerians have problems funding their education, considering how many Nigerians are abroad schooling.
Well, you see, the number of Nigerians abroad schooling, they are quite a number.
And they get paid.
And they get paid.
They pay for it.
They pay premium, they pay top dollars to get the education they get abroad. But we need to understand that in this system, there are a whole lot of people who also fall through the cracks. Okay. There are a lot of people who can't even raise the monies to pay for their tuition in the universities. And these are the people that this particular act is trying to cater for and is trying to see how that gap can be closed. So anyone, regardless of his circumstance or his background, who is able to get an admission into any tertiary institution is able to have access to pay his tuition, and he won't be left out on the basis of not being able to pay that tuition. So that is the main goal of this particular act in question.
So ostensibly the act is to actually provide loan for students who need the money to pay for tuition fees, but in public institutions.
Yes, in public institutions.
So where does this leave the private universities?
You see, these are part of the things we spoke about earlier. Education also has a market. There is buying and selling. So there is this ability of the willing buyer and the willing seller. So anyone who is going to a private university, it is assumed he already has the funds to pay for that service that he wants to pay for. So if he's going to a private university and they're charging him however much they want to charge, it is assumed that he does not need that financial support. That is why he can go to a private university, just like those who are going abroad.
Yeah.
Government isn't using this money to subsidize people going abroad. They're using this money to subsidize those that can't even afford to pay for tuition in public universities here in Nigeria.
Okay, but constitutionally speaking, okay, because I don't know whether this law will actually require an amendment to the Constitution. The Constitution guarantees free education, of course, with a caveat.
If and when
it is
applicable.
applicable.
Yes.
But it is generally assumed that education is free. And to a large extent, if you consider what an undergraduate in a Nigerian public university pays for education today, it is still essentially free, considering the cost.
In truth, it is free, but in reality, someone else is paying for it.
I know somebody is paying.
Yes.
Ultimately, also the taxpayer pays for free education and all that.
Sure.
And I believe if you can actually translate the money that is being paid to provide free education into an obligatory financing, which will be returned later, is probably okay. But does this act close the door to the entire idea of free education? Don't forget, free education, as far as we're concerned, is still free at the primary level, the secondary level, and this student loan scheme and act is actually targeted towards the tertiary education sector, which perhaps is one of the most important sector, because this is where you actually train people in various skill sets, and this is where they mature to become critical contributors to the economic development of the nation. Is the federal government closing the door finally on the prospect of free education, since if it is free, you wouldn't need a loan?
Well, I wouldn't say they are closing the door. I would say that they're trying to make financing education in a more effective and efficient manner. As it stands, when it comes to grading the different levels of education as to which is most important, I would say the basic education is actually more important than the university education. But nevertheless, as it stands, financing those who are going to the university is something that government now wants to make it in a way whereby if you don't have the money, you can have access to a loan to pay. But where the problem comes right now is there is this idea that education should be completely free. And that idea, as much as a lot of people have that idea, and a lot of politicians do promote that idea that education should be free, in reality, education is not free. Education is very expensive. The problem we are having is we want quality education.
Yes.
We also want free education.
Yes.
That's the case of wanting to eat our cake and have it at the same time. We have to pick it. If you want quality education, it comes at a cost. If you want crappy education, it also comes at a cost. I bet it is much lower.
But let me ask you this, because I'm not going to let go of this idea that maybe the government is trying to free itself of the obligation of actually providing either subsidized education or free education, whatever you call it. The point is that if you are committed to giving loans to students who are deserving of it, you are basically saying that, okay, we'll loan you some naira to complete your education, but you're going to have to pay it back. Yes, the loan is interest-free.
Yes.
Okay. We'll come back to that in terms of the penchant of Nigerians to abuse this kind of privileges. If you see an interest-free loan, even if it's for education, you might want to look the other way and see whether I can get this to do some other things. But that's for later. If government says, okay, you have a loan facility, and in the crafting of the act, there is a segment of the population that is particularly targeted for this. Those whose household income is less than 500,000 per month. Okay, basically, people earning minimum wage will get something around 300,000 per month. But I don't know whether it's gross or net, but if you add the allowances to it, they probably should be on that bracket. So you may even say, once your household income goes beyond 500,000, you are not eligible for that loan. So who is actually being targeted? Do you think there are a lot of Nigerians today whose household income is more than 2 million, but everything is being taken off by utilities, food, rising costs? So basically, if you factor those people out, nearly nobody is going to be eligible for this loan.
Well, in reality, you know, the intention of the law,
Yes.
of the act, is to cater for those who are in the lower rungs of the economic ladder. That is what it is actually meant to cater for. As to the grading of people based on their annual income of 500,000 naira, I believe that needs to be looked into.
Yes.
Because we do have a lot of poor people, even people who earn much more than that, you know, but at the same time they still find it a struggle. They find it, have a daily struggle to cater for their needs, and making them pay very high fees in school would be most unfortunate. So that should be looked into.
I don't know. Maybe the jury is still out, because I'm sure there will be a lot of people who will have something different to say about this loan. But I am quite familiar with, in those days, states government used to actually provide bursary. You know, this is not a scholarship as such. It's not meant to finance your education. Just like a stipend, you know, to help you, support you in your school.
Yeah.
This has stopped for most states, if not for all.
No. It is still ongoing for many states. A lot of states still do it. The only challenge that we have is that on more occasions, more often than not,
consistently,
these monies don't come consistently, and a whole lot of times the money is very small compared to the amount of money you spend. While in the university, I was able to get 5,000 naira from Kwara State government, and that was money that...
5,000 naira?
Yes, once.
Per month?
No, just once in 5 years.
5,000 naira for
Yes.
5 years, 1,000 naira per year.
Yes. You know, it's a good thing that at least the government remembered us and gave us something, though they could have done more. But nevertheless, we all know that not all states have the same economic ability.
Yes.
You know, so those that have more are able to do more. Those that have less are able to do, you know, much less. We have seen situations where state governments buy laptops for their students from their states. Some give them bursaries as high as even 500,000 to 1 million, depending on the course you study. So we have seen this. It still goes on. Even private individuals, aspiring politicians, philanthropists do come in through the bursary system and then send some monies to students who are from their states and from their constituents from time to time. It's still going on. But the challenge right now, they want to institutionalize that support by giving access for people to get loans. And that's what the government has done by passing this act, and I believe they should be commended for it. It's a good one.
Okay, now we agree that it's a commendable thing that the government has done to facilitate and enhance access to quality education at the tertiary level.
Yeah.
But this loan scheme will be worked through or will be implemented through the auspices of the financial sector.
Definitely.
We've seen what has happened with the agricultural loans, where, well, they disburse it, but it doesn't often go to the people that require it the most. So that's why a lot of our agriculture is still at the subsistence level.
True. In truth, you know, when it comes to disbursement and management of loans, we need to understand that there is a business end to it. And it's not all businesses that thrive. It's not all loans that are that are paid back.
Yeah.
Some loans go bad, and some are successful. You know, they get the interest and they get profit at the end of the day. But as it stands for this particular one, it is an interest-free loan.
Yes, it is.
And the government and the financial institutions who are going to be disbursing these loans are going to be working in tandem with the CBN, because the loans are going to be disbursed and supervised by a committee. And in that committee, you have the CBN governor, you have the vice chancellors of the universities, you have the ones from the Polytechnic, you have
even from the student union.
Yeah, from the student union, who are going to be superintending how those loans are being disbursed.
Is this not imposing unnecessary bureaucratic bottleneck on the disbursement of loans?
Not necessarily. This is just to provide a form of oversight.
Okay.
to ensure that those who are actually getting these loans are, one, they are students of the universities. So their data from the schools have to rhyme with those from the banks. We have to ensure that for you to even have access to those loans as provided by the Act, they must have gotten an admission letter.
Okay.
As they have gotten that admission letter, with that admission letter, they have to confirm it from the university before the bank can disburse money. So these are those things that are put in place to prevent abuse.
I will have to ask also, though I don't expect you to be able to give me a direct answer on this because you are not from. What measures are being put in place to ensure that these loans are being used for the purposes that for which they are intended, for educational purposes alone? Because we know the deal in this country.
It is.
I don't want to speculate or assume or generalize, but who wouldn't want an interest? The only place you can get interest-free loans now is under the Sharia, or what do you call it?
Islamic banks.
Islamic banking.
Yes.
And of course, it is interest is just a moniker for saying, okay, we are not charging you that thing called interest, but there's still a kind of cost. Okay, I remember when I went to go and apply for an interest-free loan to purchase supplies for a contract that I'm to execute. They simply told me to mark it up. The items that I'm going to buy with the loan, that I should mark it up, and the markup will constitute some kind of profit that I will share with the bank.
Yes.
Which means you are paying something for the facility.
You are paying something for the facility, but it's not interest. You are sharing profit.
That's why I say
yes,
it's just,
and you're also
interest is just a
sharing
name
risk.
then.
No, it's you know, the entire concept of interest-free loan, it's a field of study of its own,
Okay.
and a lot of intricacies to it. You are not paying interest, but if you make profit from the business, part of that profit goes to the bank.
Shared.
And if you make losses, part of those losses will also be shared by the bank. So that is, you know, so that's just an introductory aspect to it. But that's by the way. As it stands, what the government or what the law has stated is that that money is to be used to pay for tuition.
Okay.
So the way the money is going to be disbursed, it's not going to be put in the pockets of students.
Why not?
Because it's going to be used.
They are the ones taking the loans.
They are taking the loan, but the loan is already tied
To
the tuition they have to pay to the university.
Okay.
So instead of just paying to the university directly from their pockets, they are just more or less submitting their details and telling the bank to make that payment on their behalf.
Okay, let's go on a short break. When we come back, I will be asking you questions pertaining to whether, okay, I take a loan of 5,000 today, and in 5 years' time, that 5,000 due to inflation has become like 500,000, and the employment climate is still not improved and everything. So how does it not eventually constitute a burden? I'm sure there is a way you can keep the repayment down, but we'll discuss this when we come back from the short break. Stay with us. We'll be back. Welcome back, and you're still watching Rapid TV, and my guest here is Barrister Bashir Ibrahim, and the discussion is about the recently signed Students' Loan Act by the President and the impacts and the ramifications of that for the educational sector and for our general development going forward. The idea is to improve access to educational funding, and by so doing, ensure that resources are available to actually improve the back end of education and deliver quality that will contribute to economic development, economic social development, and put Nigeria back where we all want it to be in the Committee of Nations as one of those progressive nations that are constantly on the rise. Don't forget, if you go to other countries, you find that most of their very, very notable intellectuals are from Nigeria. In fact, Nigeria's intellectual contribution to other countries, perhaps even more than what our Nigerian trained intellectuals have contributed to our country itself. I believe this is one way to keep our intellectual resources within the country and ensure that we utilize what we have created to our own best benefit. Barrister, let me ask you now, how do we stop the brain drain using this important tool of providing access? Are we not simply improving the state of education in Nigeria in order to give it up to other countries to utilize?
You see, the world is now a global village. And when you find yourself in this situation, the only thing we can do is to improve our environment and to put things that will attract people to want to stay in the country. That is what we need to do.
Is it not enough?
The thing is, we can always get better, we can always do more. We have seen situations of things in some states of the country. I'll give an example with their medical doctors.
Okay.
Being a medical doctor, I believe, is in Yobe State. Once you're a medical doctor there, they provide you with a house. They provide you with a good salary. They provide you with certain things that, make your life easier. Now, that might not be enough to make everyone want to be a doctor and stay there, but that might be something that would want to compensate for a lot of things that people who want to leave the country to get might actually, stay here and benefit more. A lot of times, when it comes to wanting to stop people from going abroad or preventing people from going abroad to contribute to other countries, this is something that backfires more than what we can initially calculate. Because in one hand, they are going abroad to contribute their intellectual abilities and capacity to those countries. In another hand, they send money to their relatives, Nigeria. And with that, it comes back in form of remittances. We have seen in the past couple of years remittances to Nigeria growing.
So you're an advocate of JAPA?
I am not an advocate against JAPA.
Okay.
Yes, because there are benefits that comes with it. Not every Nigerian will leave.
That's true.
And for everyone who leaves, he has more relatives back home.
Yeah.
And more often than not, going abroad gives them the ability to earn money in foreign currencies, and they're able to send, $100, $200, $50 to their relatives at home, and that goes a long way into making the life of the people at home better.
Yeah.
So at the same time, we also have a situation whereby people who have worked abroad, gained a lot of experience, and are pretty very successful, they come back to Nigeria and they set up hospitals, they set up companies, they set up facilities, and some set up banks to create jobs and to improve the economy. And some even come to work for government in high capacities where they can advise the government on what to do to improve the country. We have the likes of, Tony Ogulesi,
okay,
who bought the Gatwick Airport. Now he's assisting Nigerian government in trying to improve aviation in some parts of the state. So these are things that if there is an opportunity, it's a win-win.
It's an investment.
It's an investment. If they go...
But this investment is not being encouraged by the government. In fact, they are trying to put a stop to it.
Well, I wouldn't advise
if
that.
Government is facilitating the exit of our intellectuals abroad to go and contribute to other countries' economy, shouldn't it be part of an obligatory agreement for them to actually give something back, not just in terms of remittances to their family, and I suppose if the government will give a loan to an undergraduate and he finishes his studies and he wants to go abroad, will he be able to, if he still has loans outstanding that he must pay to the government who gave him that loan, or will they insist that you must finish, you must pay back the entirety of your loan before we will allow you to get out of the country to do your master's or further your education.
You know, these are things that can be worked on. These are things that can be arranged. They are things that can be agreed upon. When it comes to that, federal government has the ability to tie some of these loans to their travel documents.
Okay.
And make it in such a way that wherever they are anywhere in the world, those countries are made liable to pay some amount of money to Nigeria for the cost of training that particular person to the level that he has been trained. You know, there are a lot of people who have this belief or this wrong notion that Nigeria has not done anything for them. And so they don't owe Nigeria anything. But when you ask them, they went to school basically for free. Many of them when they were growing up, they went to general hospitals. If they were to go to private hospitals, they could not have been able to afford the fees of private hospitals.
Yeah.
They grew up, you know, using public water, using public roads, you know, enjoying the facilities that have been provided by the federal government. I bet it might not necessarily be the best in the world, but you can't say Nigeria hasn't done anything for you if you went to a public university. Now, government now has to put something in place, either by making sure that wherever they are in the world, there is a certain tax that is attached to their paycheck that they have to send to Nigeria. It might not be much, but we need to understand that there are certain countries, for example, the USA. As a US citizen, anywhere you are in the world, there is a tax that must be paid to the US government, as long as you're a citizen. So as a citizen of Nigeria, who went to a public university and now you're a doctor in London, there has to be something that government can say, well, we have trained you, you are now a dentist, you're now a consultant, you're now a surgeon, or you're now a lawyer, you're now an engineer. Wherever you are in the world, there should be something that you should be paid to the Nigerian government. It might not be much, but at least there should be a fee that government should know that for the cost of training this person, we need that money to train 10 more people back home. So those are the things that government has to look at in the future. But in the present case of having a loan, there's nothing bad in it.
So what do you think are the likely negative impact, if any? You know, it can't all be rosy.
It can't all be rosy. You know, the negative impact that what we are looking at, there is a possibility that public institutions now begin to inflate the cost of education outrageously. And this is a very likely possibility of public institutions wanting to charge like private institutions.
But they must understand that not every student has access to these loans.
Yes, and you know, the thing is, not every student has access to these loans. But once that door has been opened, they are now pushing people to go and take these loans. And then you now find a situation whereby universities just begin to...
Yeah, wouldn't this have the opposite effect of actually pushing educational access beyond the reach of even those who don't fall within the brackets of qualification for the loan? And there must be a provision for those. I mean, if there is a tier process that, okay, if your household income is below 500K, you are entitled to this amount of loan. If it is beyond this, if your household income is above this level, you are entitled to this amount of loan. It shouldn't just be a direct targeting of just one band, because we are now familiar with bands again.
Yes, you know, it is imperative to know that this is just starting.
Okay.
And in the beginning, you know, quite a number of things are not always, you know, in the perfect places. As it stands, they are starting with this. Let's have a look at it. An amendment has been made to, you know, make some amendment to the act, but nevertheless, let us see how it goes. If we look at it for the next 2 years and see, then we can have a sit down with wisdom of hindsight and see what it is we got right, what it is we got wrong, and then how do we improve on the things we got right, and how can we correct the things that we actually did wrong. You know, these are the things that we have to be able to look at once it has been implemented in full force. The thing is, until we start it and people start having access to these loans, we cannot completely assume this is how it's going to turn out. Until we can have a sit down and see, to be able to assess the performance of these loans, let's know how many people collected these loans and paid back. How many people collected these loans and ran away? Recently, a lot of people who collected COVID-19 loans but never told anyone that they collected loans are now being surprised that they are getting debit alerts from the banks, collecting those loans back from them. I know someone who collected about 400 and something thousand. She just woke up one morning and saw debit alert 150,000. COVID-19 loan. You thought the government had forgotten because they gave you this loan in 2021. And now we're in 2024 and they're deducting the loans back, interest free. So now government has to have a way of be looking at the people who have collected these loans. How do they assess them? Do they look at their financial records? Do they have their BVN? Do they have a way of monitoring them to know that the channels to which those loans went out, is their money coming back through those same channels? So those are the things the government needs to look at for them to be able to know that these particular loans they've given out are going to be repaid. Most especially knowing that these loans were not collateralized by, you know, any form of charter, any form of property, any form of land or cars or anything. No. The only thing that the government is banking on is the certificate of that individual and the opportunities that certificate might open, the doors that certificate might open for that individual. So that is what the government is banking on, not necessarily, you know, telling you to bring a laptop to get a loan. No, they are not taking any collateral.
Will the fact that you took a student loan affect your prospects of getting employed after you graduated, even if you have paid back the loan?
No.
Well, even if you have not paid back the loan,
it's not a crime.
Will it require? Because when you want to work, they will tell you, okay, you must bring your certificate, and your certificate is under lien, you know. And
you know, more often than not, most employers will not ask for the original of your certificate.
Okay.
They just want to see a copy, and at the same time, most of them want to be able to confirm that you actually went to that school. So it's about writing to the university, getting a transcript, you know, from the school to be sure that that particular person who is telling you he is a graduate of physics actually graduated from the faculty of physics.
Okay, let's look at the political angle, because this, after all, is a political current, and there is no law or policy crafted by government that is not subject to opposition derision. So I haven't had any yet, but they will come. When they come, we'll be discussing it. But basically, nobody has said anything yet, but it's going to come. What are the possible angles you think the opposition might take to cast aspersions on the, you know, on this?
Yes, they can say something like government is handing off education.
Yes, I did ask you that question too.
Yes,
I did ask you that question.
Yes, you asked. The truth is, right now, government is not handing off education. Government is only trying to see how they can create more access to people to benefit. As it stands, a lot of people are having subsidized education, which is not something bad to start with. But now the thing is, government has been taking up this cost for a very long time and neglecting, in quotes, basic education, which is the primary school, which is very essential, or which is essential to the development of every child.
But how will this Loan Act operate to free up resources to actually concentrate on the foundational education aspect, we know that is one of the most important.
Yes.
If you give a child a good foundation, it improves
Yes,
as
you
it
can
goes
build
along.
on it, yes.
You know, I also haven't heard what ASU will have to say about this. There are a lot of problems with our education system.
Yeah.
Okay, and if this frees up funds to tackle the dearth of resources and infrastructure in our educational system, some people said we have way too many universities to be able to sustain education the way we are going. Do you now see a follow-up rationalization of the core structure that delivers the quality that we are seeking, even if we have to pay for it with a loan?
Well, as it stands, ASU have always had their problems in the past, and they are not devoid of problems even as we speak. But right now, this loan is going to free up resources and allow federal government to be able to, you know, focus more attention on things that deserve attention. We need to understand that basic education is not even the responsibility of federal government.
That's true.
These are the responsibilities of the local government.
But federal government is subsidizing it in some fashion.
You know, federal government subsidizes it in certain fashion by Universal Basic Education, UBE, but at the same time, the people who are to do the main work, provide the brick and mortar, provide the schools to monitor them and ensure that the right thing is done at the primary school level, is not Mr. President. These are the jobs of the local government chairman and the state governors.
Okay.
This is what they're supposed to do. So now, for them to do that work at that level, federal government has to persuade the governors. Some are doing quite well. Some have done really well. But at the same time, you know, one child is very important in Nigeria. So we need that quality at the primary school level to go around Nigeria. It shouldn't just be, you know, one or two states who are getting it right. It should be all states and all local governments to get it right. Because when we don't get it right at the foundational level, then we now start creating problems for everyone in the society. You know, problems that we are facing today, like insecurity, the people who are causing these problems, many of them, if they had a very solid education at the foundational level, and they built on it at the secondary school level and the tertiary level, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. So we actually need to educate people well so that they don't give us problems in the next 10, 15 years.
Okay.
Which is a very short time to come.
Okay, I agree that this is a federal government initiative.
Yes.
Do you think the state should actually create student loan schemes on their own that particularly to support students of, we used to call it scholarship scheme. That way we pay for your education, you don't have to pay anything back, you know, and we sponsor you to, you know, but what role do you think the states can play now? Do you think they should replicate the federal government's effort and create mini loan schemes for their own indigents and residents in order to help things along?
Well, right now, I wouldn't say the states should replicate what federal government has done. Let federal government be the litmus test, and let's see how it pans out. The state governors and the states should concentrate more on the primary level of education, and the secondary level is very important. I've seen a lot of state governors who want to build universities, but they do not even have the finance to sustain it. Right now, do we have enough universities in Nigeria? I wouldn't say we have enough, but at the same time, we're not really doing badly. Right now, we have quite a number of universities. All the states have universities. Some states have 2, 3 universities. Some, like Kwara State, have up to 5 or 6, you know, considering if you're also going to count the private universities and the public universities. Okay. But as it stands, it's not about having the number, having a whole lot of universities. The question is, are you having quality? Those universities, do they have facilities? Do we have good lecturers? Do we have good professors? Do we have adequate equipments in the lab? Do we have the right environment? Do we have security in these areas for us to be able to learn the way we really want to learn?
Okay.
These are the things that really matter.
Okay.
And state governments have to really focus on, the primary level and the secondary level, because a whole lot of people are not getting the right education at the primary school level.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Barrister. And well, the jury is still out, and I believe that as we go ahead, we will be getting a lot of inputs, and we will bring that to you as we go along too, to see how Nigerians are actually looking at this, and whether it's a positive movement in the right direction, or whether it's going to fall into the doldrums as most of our attempts to improve educational outcomes in Nigeria are concerned. Well, this is the much we can take today. Thank you again, Barrister, for coming. We will be inviting you on other...
It's my pleasure to be
mostly
here.
legal matters this time. Well, viewers, this is the much we can take on political currents. And don't forget, we will be coming your way again with another program, trending program, that exposes the nitty-gritty, the currents that flows under our political realities. My name is Rashid Oniagi. Thank you for viewing.